As we've said and read, our parsha this week focuses on mostly on the priestly garments. In Exodus 28:2 it says, "And you shall make holy garments for Aharon your brother, for glory and for majesty." Garments figure quite prominently in both the Torah and in the Besorah. We have, of course, Adam and Eve at the very beginning of time, sin. They now know between good and evil and that they are naked, and God makes for them clothing as he casts them out of the garden. With Yaakov, my note here is really weird, so I don't know what that's saying. With Yaakov, he puts on his brother's clothing to deceive his father Isaac in order to get the blessing. Tamar disguises herself as a harlot in order to try an attempt to get a son. Yosef, he has his father's coat of many colors of great fame. He then finds himself, though, at the hands of his brothers, ending up in rags. But again, he flourishes in Egypt in Potiphar's house and has fine clothes again. And if you'll notice, when his wife tries to seduce him, she grabs onto his garment. There's another thing of the garment there. And then once again, he ends up in rags in prison. But then he's elevated after interpreting Paro's dream, and he has these garments of royal Egyptian garments, so much so that his brothers can't even recognize him years later. Jonathan gives David his clothes as a sign of his love. And of course, we read here today that Samuel tears the robe of King Shaul and tells him because of his disobedience, he is losing his kingship. We're about to celebrate Purim this coming week, believe it or not. And here we have Esther donning the royal robes, coming before the king. And we have Mordecai, who, much like Yosef, is given fine robes and paraded through the city by his nemesis, who is really thrilled about doing this. But then when he finds out about the decree of killing the Jews, he exchanges his fine clothes for sackcloth and ashes. And then, of course, by the end of the story, he's elevated again and given fine raiments to wear. Yochanan the Immerser wears skins, expressing his role as a prophet coming out of the desert. Yeshua's garment is seized by the woman who's bleeding. She grabs onto his tzitzit and is healed. And then later we have the soldiers dividing Yeshua's clothing. And then, of course, finally, as we read today in our Besorah, there are all of the martyrs who are given these white garments of righteousness. So garments feature pretty prominently throughout all of our text. Clothing has two functions. Clothing can conceal and clothing can reveal. We can conceal because clothing preserves modesty, preventing the private from becoming public. But it can reveal as well. People wear clothes to express themselves. Some people wear jewelry that they like or their favorite colors. People wear different clothing to express their cultural identity, like a kimono or a sari or a kashiki, which is an African robe. People wear garments to express their faith, like kippot, hijabs, crosses, and Magen Davids. We have the countercultural folks, the goths, the punks, the hippies. Do we have any countercultural group today that's like dressing odd? Gangs. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, they wear their colors and all that. And if you're like me, you're a geek. We love to express ourselves with clothing, with funny T-shirts, superhero shirts, odd kippot. I have over 100 kippot, believe it or not. And a lot of them I've gotten customized, with different things on them, different sayings and whatnot. I was wearing one yesterday that said, Shabbat, just do it. And it's got the Nike swoosh on it. And of course, a talit that is also a Scottish tartan. In Purim, we wear costumes that express ourselves or our interest or whatever. A young girl might dress up as a cop because she'd really like to be one someday, or a boy as a cowboy. Garments can also be metaphorical. Outer garments are the way that we present ourselves to others. It is a persona that we put on that conceals our true selves. Politicians usually have carefully crafted public persona of how they want to be viewed by everybody. And much the same way con artists, they put on a certain persona to take advantage of people. Corporate climbers, one of my favorite categories of people, put on airs of competence and charisma that most of the time they really don't have. People pleasers can be overly agreeable in order to avoid conflict. Narcissists can be charming, but it's to hide the deep insecurities that they have. And of course, sociopaths or psychopaths, how many serial killers people have said, oh, but he was such a charming person, It's because they're very good at putting on this persona. They emulate empathy. And we all do this to one degree or another. Clothing in Hebrew is beged. But also and this is from the root word Beit Gimel Dalet. But also from this root word is the word begidah, which means betrayal or a concealment, hiding. This points out the danger in clothing, both physical and metaphorical. Like I said, folks can betray who they are and can thus cause much damage. They can seem trustworthy. How many horrible instances have we had over recent decades of doctors, coaches, and clergy with sexual immorality? A boss that seems trustworthy, but they'll throw you under the bus before they blink an eye and think nothing of it. But we can also betray ourselves with our physical and metaphorical clothing. Rabbi Natan of Nemirov, who was a disciple of Nachman of Breslov, said that people soil their garments with their sins. I quote, "The soiled garments themselves confuse his mind and bend his heart to the point that he pretends not to know the filth of his deeds, and he still desires the honor of this world, and he stumbles in pride and arrogance, and because of this he cannot draw near to the truth." Soiled clothes aren't worn dirty and tattered. They are often garments of glory and majesty. They look really good on the outside. People look good on the outside, but this could be deceptive. They can also distract a person from looking at themselves more deeply and to see what deep down requires repair. Our solution for this can be found in Mordecai's story, in the Purim story. He is given royal robes, as I said, honored by the king, but he willingly strips this away and puts on sackcloth and ashes, refuses to keep his royal clothing. And I think we could see this as a metaphor for us taking down our garments of glory and majesty and taking a deep, honest look at ourselves. This is also highlighted in the commandments about the high priest clothing. We read in our parsha this week about all the different garments that the Kohen Gadol wears, the breastplate, the band around his head, the turban, all of this. But when it comes to Yom Kippur, he does not wear these garments into the Holy of Holies. He exchanges them for simple white linen garments, expressing humility. Yeshua sets this as an example for us, as we have in our liturgy the reading from Philippians. Though he was in the form of God, he did not regard equality with God as something to be possessed by force. On the contrary, he emptied himself in that he took the form of a slave by becoming like human beings are. And when he appeared as a human being, he humbled himself still more by becoming obedient even to death. We also wear white on Yom Kippur. This expresses not only purity, but also humility. We stand before Hashem, seeking to bear our very depths to him on that very special day. And we wear a kittel, which is the garment that we will be buried in someday, the point at which all pretense is cast away, and we will stand utterly exposed before Hashem at the throne of judgment. Sadly, all too many people aren't willing to do the hard work of casting off their garments of glory and majesty. Years ago, I was talking with a man, and he told me that he did not want to pursue, he actually said this, but at least he's honest. He did not want to pursue a deeper spiritual life because he was afraid of what he would see and what God might show him. And I can tell you, if you want a challenge, pray and ask God to show you what you're blind about yourself. I've done it, and it's not easy what comes out. You know, I've realized that I talk about such things as this in a lot of my sermons. But, you know, in my mind, if we're not seeking to be more like Hashem and Yeshua, then what's the point? Why are we here? Too many of our houses of worship are full of folks who wear garments of majesty and glory. I'm sure you've encountered them too. But like Yeshua said, they are whitewashed tombs, which look fine on the outside, but inside are full of dead people's bones and all kinds of rottenness. And they appear to people from the outside to be good and honest, as Yeshua said, but inwardly you are full of hypocrisy and far from Torah. I firmly believe that our task in this life is to cast off our garments of glory and majesty on a regular basis, to do the hard work of donning sackcloth and ashes, to prayerfully look deep into ourselves, casting away all pretense and self-deception. And that we should join with the psalmist who said, "Examine me, O Lord, and know my heart. Test me and know my thoughts. See if there is in me any hurtful way, and lead me along the eternal way." And if we ask Hashem for help, he will be faithful to do this. May we regularly be aware of the trap of wearing clothes of glory and majesty. May we follow the footsteps of Mordechai and the Kohen Gadol and cast off those garments in humility and self-introspection. May we join our Messiah in setting aside our glory and service to ourselves and to others. And in doing so, we will merit the true garments of glory and majesty, the robes of righteousness that will be granted to us in Olam Haba. Shabbat Shalom.